Real-life murders so horrifying they will shatter your perception. In 2014, a teenager found a human head on the side of the road in Pennsylvania. It had been embalmed, professionally preserved, and to this day, no one knows who she was. No one has ever come forward to identify her. In 1972, a 17-year-old girl's body was scattered across 2 states, her hands in one place, her torso miles away. Her head was never found, still missing, over 50 years later, and nobody knows where it is. Nobody's in prison right now. The case is still open, and the families are still waiting for answers. These aren't stories from dark alleys or sketchy neighborhoods. These happened on hiking trails, in state parks, in quiet suburbs, places where people jog every morning and wave at their neighbors, places you've probably been to, places that felt safe. I'm going to walk you through 5 of Pennsylvania's most disturbing unsolved cases. And honestly, some of these are going to stick with you. Let's get into it. Starting with case number 5 from 1988. May 20th, 1988, Michaud State Forest. Picture this. Perfect spring afternoon. Temperatures hitting that sweet spot. The kind of weather where you don't even think about it. Birds are out. Trails quiet. Just another peaceful day. Rebecca Wright, 33, and her partner Claudia Brenner were hiking through the Adams County section of the forest that day. They'd parked their car, hit the trail, no real plan, just 2 people enjoying the outdoors on a beautiful afternoon. At some point, they stopped in a clearing off the main path, the kind of spot where you can hear every little sound. Leaves crunching under feet, branches moving in the wind, birds calling through the trees. Everything seemed perfectly normal. And then a man stepped out from the woods ahead of them. No words, no warning, no hesitation at all. He raised a rifle and opened fire. Rebecca went down first. Claudia got hit too, but stayed conscious somehow. She heard the shots ripping through the silence, felt the impact before the pain even registered in her body. And here's the part that gets me. After the shooting, this guy didn't run, didn't panic, didn't do anything. He just lowered his weapon, turned around, and walked back into the forest like absolutely nothing had happened. Rebecca died right there on that trail. She was only 33 years old. Her life ended in seconds. Claudia was bleeding, wounded, and completely alone. She didn't know if he was coming back to finish the job. So she stayed still, played dead, for what felt like forever, not knowing if each breath would be her last. When she finally moved, she dragged herself back to the trail, back to the parking lot, and somehow found help. Police showed up and nothing made sense. No robbery, no struggle, no connection between the victims and the shooter, just a random attack in the middle of nowhere. 2 women shot for no apparent reason anyone could understand. Eventually, they traced it to a guy named Stephen Roy Carr. Lived nearby, spent a lot of time in that forest. When cops searched his place, they found the rifle. Ballistics matched. But here's what really messed with investigators. They found his writings, his journals. Carr had a deep, violent hatred toward women, specifically toward lesbians. There was no personal beef, no prior contact. He saw 2 women together, and that was enough for him. She survived. And in the years after, she spoke publicly about what happened, not for attention or sympathy, but to make sure people understood exactly what this was, a targeted hate crime in a place where nobody expects danger. December 12th, 2014, Beaver County, Pennsylvania. A teenager is walking along a road in Economy Borough that afternoon. Quiet area northwest of Pittsburgh. Residential streets bleeding into woods and industrial parks. Nothing unusual about it. He notices something near the edge of the pavement. At first doesn't register. Just looks like debris or roadkill, maybe. Then he gets closer and realizes what he's looking at. It's a human head, just sitting there on the road. When police arrived, they realized immediately something was way off. This head had been embalmed, let that sink in, Someone had preserved this head professionally before placing it there. The kind of work you see in funeral homes or medical labs, and then they placed it on a public road, positioned it so someone would find it. No blood trail, no drag marks, no evidence of a struggle anywhere nearby. The rest of her body was never found. Not at that location, not anywhere else. It just doesn't exist. Cops started digging into mortuaries, anatomy labs, medical schools across the region, checked inventories, reviewed all the records. Nothing was reported missing anywhere. The head belonged to a woman, that's confirmed, but who she was remains unknown. No matches in missing persons databases, no dental records that lined up. No one ever came forward to identify her. And here's what really keeps this case from fading. This wasn't chaotic. This wasn't someone panicking and dumping a body. Every detail suggests planning. Someone knew how to embalm a head. Someone chose that exact spot. Someone timed the placement. And then they just walked away. To this day, the woman has never been identified. Her remains have never been recovered. There's no explanation for why her head was separated from her body or why it ended up on that road. Someone out there knows exactly what happened, and they've never said a single word about it to anyone. September 1990, Perry County, Pennsylvania. If you've ever hiked the Appalachian Trail, you know exactly how shelters work. They're these three-sided structures scattered along the route. No doors, no locks, no reservations, completely open to anyone. You show up, you share the space, you trust that everyone there plays by the same unwritten rules of the trail. That's the deal. That's how it's always been. Molly LaRue, 25, and Jeff Hood, 26, were both experienced hikers. They'd met on the trail the way a lot of hikers do. Same direction, same shelters. You start seeing the same faces. By that September evening, they'd ended up at a shelter near Duncannon. Packs came off, boots against the wall, standard routine. The shelter sat tucked into the trees, far enough from everything that once night fell. The forest took over completely. No sounds from the outside world, just darkness and whatever was moving through it. And that night, something was moving. At some point that night, after things had quieted down, a man approached the shelter where they were sleeping. What happened next broke every assumption the trail community had ever held about safety and trust on the Appalachian Trail. Jeff was shot. Molly was bound, assaulted, and stabbed. When it was over, both of them were dead, and the shelter went silent again. The next morning, other hikers showed up expecting to rest after a long hike. Instead, they walked into a crime scene. Investigators were immediately at a disadvantage trying to piece together what happened. Shelters don't have cameras, don't have sign-in sheets. People come and go without a trace. Anyone could have passed through that night, but fragments started coming together. Descriptions from hikers who'd been in the area, timelines that placed certain people at certain points. Eventually, all of it pointed to one man, Paul David Cruz, who already had a prior assault conviction on his record. Violent tendencies were documented. His movements put him in the area that night, and his history showed a clear pattern. Restraints, control, targeting strangers. He was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison for the murders. But here's the thing, even with the resolution, something shifted in the trail community that never fully came back after that. Before this, shelters were sacred ground. You didn't question who was sleeping next to you. You didn't lock up your gear. You trusted the system. After this, some hikers stopped using shelters entirely. Others changed how they traveled the trail, who they camped near, how much they shared with strangers. The trail itself stayed the same as it always was. But the people on it moved differently from that point forward. That sense of trust was gone forever. June 22nd, 1979, suburbs west of Philadelphia. Susan Reinert was a teacher, single mom, 2 kids named Karen and Michael. They lived along the main line, that stretch of Pennsylvania known for good schools, quiet streets, and reliable stability. The kind of place where nothing ever really happens. That Friday, Susan didn't show up to work. The kids didn't come home. But then hours passed, then a full day. When police finally checked Susan's house, there was nothing. No note, no sign of packing, no blood, no struggle. Whatever happened, it happened without warning. There was absolutely no indication of what was coming. Days later, they found Susan, beaten to death, left in a wooded area in Delaware County, not far from home. A few days after that, the children were found in Chester County, 15 miles away. Both had been drowned. 3 bodies, 3 locations. Somebody had moved them, crossed county lines, taken their time doing it, very deliberately. Investigators looked at Susan's ex-husband first, father of the kids. Standard procedure, but he was cleared fast. Solid alibi. Loved his family. Nothing connected him to the crime. So they dug into Susan's personal life, and things got complicated. She'd been in a relationship with a fellow teacher named J.C. Smith. Intense guy, complicated reputation around town. Prosecutors built a case around him. Motive, opportunity, behavior that fit the profile. Smith was convicted and sentenced to death. Then the appeals started. Testimony unraveled. Evidence handling got questioned. Weaknesses the jury never heard came to light. Smith's conviction was overturned. Charges collapsed. But the story didn't end there. Attention shifted to another figure in Susan's orbit. William Bradfield, Jr., another colleague, known for controlling behavior. Red flags all over his history. Prosecutors built a second case. This one framed as calculated, predatory, deliberate. Bradfield was convicted too, and years later, that conviction was also overturned. Unreliable witnesses, withheld evidence, prosecutorial misconduct. So where does that leave us with this case right now? A mother and her 2 children were murdered. 2 men were tried. 2 men were convicted. 2 convictions were thrown out. Today, nobody's in prison for these killings. The case is technically still open, but there's no active investigation, no new leads. Summer of 1972, Kensington, Philadelphia. Dolores Della Penna was 17 years old, just a normal teenager living her life. On July 11th, she left home to run an errand and never came back. Her family waited, but she never returned. At first, cops treated it like a runaway situation. Happened all the time back then. Teenage girl doesn't come home. She'll turn up. Probably just doesn't want to be found. That's what they thought. But within weeks, human remains started appearing across southern New Jersey. Hands in one location, a torso miles away, pieces scattered far enough apart that no single discovery told the whole story. When investigators started connecting the finds, they realized this wasn't random disposal. The cuts were precise, methodical, almost surgical. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They recovered several body parts, but not all of them. Some were missing. Her head has never been found. In the early 70s, identification relied heavily on dental records, fingerprints, and facial recognition. In this case, the fingerprints had been removed. The head was gone. Every method investigators could have used was deliberately destroyed. It took months to confirm the remains belonged to Dolores. By then, the trail was ice cold, and that was clearly the point. No witnesses could place her final movements. No confirmed sightings after she disappeared. Whatever happened to her happened completely out of view. The geography made everything harder. Philadelphia and New Jersey law enforcement had to coordinate across state lines on this case. Evidence bounced back and forth between jurisdictions, but answers never followed. Investigators believed the killer had experience handling bodies. The dismemberment suggested familiarity with tools, with anatomy. But no suspect ever emerged who fit cleanly enough to charge. Names came up, leads surfaced, everything collapsed under scrutiny. And here's what makes this case different from all the others. This wasn't just unsolved, it was obstructed by design. Every choice made after the murder ensured Dolores couldn't be identified quickly, couldn't be reconstructed, couldn't be recovered in full, even in death. Pieces of her were deliberately withheld from her family. For her family, there was never closure. There's no grave site that contains all of her, no final accounting of her remains, just the confirmation that something intentional and violent happened, followed by 50 years of silence, no answers, no justice. The case is still officially open. Forensic technology has advanced. Cold case units have revisited the evidence where possible. But without the missing remains, there are limits to what science can fix. Dolores Della Penna didn't vanish into thin air. She was taken apart, dispersed, left incomplete, and whoever did it made sure she'd stay that way forever. So those are 5 cases from Pennsylvania that still don't have real answers. 5 stories that will stay with you. A woman whose embalmed head was left on the side of the road, still unidentified, still waiting to be claimed. A trail shelter that was supposed to be safe. 2 people paid for that assumption with their lives that night. A mother and her children murdered, 2 convictions overturned, and nobody held accountable for what happened to that family. A teenage girl scattered across 2 states, her head still missing after half a century. No closure for her family. And a couple shot in the woods by a stranger who hated them for existing, for being who they were. Some of these have resolutions, most don't, and the ones that do still leave you wondering how it was allowed to happen. If you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around. Drop a comment if any of these hit different for you. And if you want more stories like this, you know what to do. Stay safe out there. I'll catch you in the next one.